Welcome back to the show, everybody. So a lot of us have heard of trending finance terms like quiet luxury and loud budgeting, but this latest one is called money dysmorphia.
Yep, and here to break down what that is and how to get a handle on it is author of The Golden Quest, Your Journey to a Rich Life, David Delisle. Welcome back to the show.
So let's start with the basics, David. What or how would you define money dysmorphia? What is it?
So it's just when your perception of your personal finances doesn't match reality.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Simple as
That's it.
So it can go in either direction. You can either have sort of an inflated sense of how much you're worth or a deflated, I'm guessing. So what impact does your financial habits have on how you see yourself if you see yourself as less wealthy than you actually are?
It's interesting because you can go in either direction. So a lot of people who feel like they're less wealthy and everybody has more and they have that dysmorphia, they might just say, you know what, you only live once. So they spend all their money and they just don't care, and they actually spend money they don't have.
Got it.
But then the opposite, we also know those people who have all that fear, and so they start hoarding, and they're saving out of fear, not out of, not out of creating financial freedom. It's out of fear, and it's all fear-based, and it's that dysmorphia.
Okay, so let's flip it then. Is it common for people, I feel like this is such a funny question. Is it common for people to act significantly wealthier than they really are?
For sure, and that's where a lot of this is coming in, because we are so bombarded by social media and being shown what other people are doing, and it's linked to, I have this money, so I'm happy. I'm doing these things, so I'm happy. That's just not the case, but we see that, and so people feel like this idea of keeping up with the Joneses, it's the same thing as keeping up with the Joneses, but unlike past generations, it's just been amplified because the Joneses are everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, so does a person's income level impact their susceptibility to developing money dysmorphia?
So, and usually we would think that people with less would have more of this money dysmorphia, but this is why it's so important for me to talk about this stuff, because what happens is it doesn't matter how much you have. If you have this dysmorphia or you have this idea of keeping up with the Joneses or this lack or fear mentality, it doesn't matter how much you have. You're always chasing more. And we know those people who, they're just like, as soon as I get that boat, I'm fine. As soon as I get this house or this job, I'm fine. But as soon as they get it, they're immediately thinking the next thing.
Yeah.
And so it really doesn't matter how much you have. It's your relationship to money that's more important.
That is so fascinating, really, when you put it that way. Okay, so recent studies indicate 43% of Gen Z are affected by money dysmorphia. Why do you, that's a big number, but why do you think they may be more susceptible to having a kind of, dysregulated relationship with their money?
Well, and that's why it's such a hot topic right now. Like 43%, that's a big percentage. And these are people who just, it's unrealistic, their views of money and what reality is. But it's because our kids, unfortunately, are being fed an unrealistic view of what reality is on a regular basis. And sort of what we just mentioned real quickly before coming on even, this whole idea of money being taboo, we as parents aren't talking about it with our kids. Nobody's talking about it with our kids except the media and social media, and this has given them this distorted view of what reality is.
You just made me think of something. This is also Gen Z, I feel like, a cashless generation. It's just cards and online. Like, is there a disconnect between no longer touching hard money?
Well, there's definitely a disconnect. Like, they don't see it, they don't understand it, but if you think of even as parents, like I've got kids, you have kids, a lot of times they don't know how much things cost. We just buy it for them. They never see, they never see the money. They never see it
exchange hands.
Just this past weekend, I was out with my son and he wanted to buy something and I made him come home and give me back the money in cash. I did it. I was like,
good
you're
for
paying
you.
me back for that. So you're talking about Gen Z right now, or Gen Z, are other generations also impacted by this?
Yeah, well, that's what we'll see. So even millennials, I mean, it's still over 40% that are impacted by this. Past generations were, but much less. I mean, they would have been in the teens, and we might know some people, and even ourselves, we'd want to, keep up maybe with our friends, but that's what we would be seeing. It's really the millennials and Gen Z, we're seeing this trend. It's an upwards trend, and what's scary is, I mean, the next generation is going to be, it's going to be worse.
Let's talk about that next generation, because Cynthia and I are raising that next generation. In case you don't know, they are called Generation Alpha. That's our kids' generation. And so we were talking before we came out here that we never talked about money in our family. So how can we break the cycle with our own children?
Such a good question. And I got little boys too, so same thing. And the conversations. It's so simple. So that's the thing is when we think about financial literacy, we make it bigger and more complicated than it is.
Okay.
It's simply talking about money. So when you go to fill up your car with gas, you need to let your kids know how much that costs. You go out for dinner, let them know how much it costs. And remove the shame and the guilt and don't tell them so that they, thanks so much, Mom, because you did this. No, it's just information. Just make it common so they start understanding it. And then they start seeing what reality really is, not what they might be
That's
fed.
true.
Okay, so let's talk about tips. So tips for people struggling with money dysmorphia and to start to overcome it. How do we align what we have and reality?
Well, so the first thing for sure is just having those conversations. Like I mentioned, like that is massive and it's super easy. And even when my kids were really young, like the 2-year-olds can get it. If you just start telling them how much things cost and you put it in terms that they understand, how much things cost in, their language of currency, like, chocolate bars or Lego for my boys.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And then another one, which is really interesting, like I talked about this feeling of lack and you never have enough, and that's part of this dysmorphia. Well, giving is actually so, so powerful. So I talk about in my book how giving, there's this reciprocity where the more you give, the richer you are. But another amazing thing is if you're starting to give, it's really hard to not be grateful, not recognize how much you have. And giving doesn't have to be money either. It could be just time, service, volunteering. So that's really big. And then, and this is something we brought up last time I was here, ask yourself, is this my awesome stuff? And it's just a bit of money mindfulness. So when you're looking at things, you notice how it makes you feel. So I know you talk about pleasure a lot. It's this idea of how it makes you feel. So what I like to say is like, the more you focus on what brings you joy, the more you realize what doesn't. And it's just so, so important. And that'll start breaking this whole cycle.
Yeah.
And then asking for help, I put there because we have so much shame around money. We feel like we should know it all, and if I don't understand real estate or investments or taxes, I'll just pretend I know it. And that's not, like, everything else we ask for help, we don't expect to know what our doctors know, even with our cars. Like, I don't fix my car.
Yeah.
I take it to a mechanic. So ask for help, feel like it's okay to have those conversations. And then this is really important as well, and this really shifts the way a lot of us think about money. Most of us are thinking about money in terms of what it can buy. What can I buy with my money? But as soon as you shift it to what can my money earn, that's where you start creating financial freedom, setting things up for the future, and not living just for today.
Oh, David, great tips. Thank you so much. Great to have you back.
So great to
Thank
be
you.
here. Thank you.
Great tips. Okay, you got a minute to let that sink in because we're taking a break. We'll be right back after.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.